And welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. Joining us now is our friend Byron York, Chief Political Correspondent for the Washington Examiner. Hey, Byron.
Hi, Steve. Good to be here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, as always. All right, so the Republicans are home, as are the Democrats, recess, and they're going around town halls and et cetera. What's going to come out of this? You wrote a piece the other day at the Washington Examiner asking the question, is Obamacare or immigration going to turn out to be the Republican priority coming out of this recess? Which do you think?
Well, it seems right now that a lot of the intensity with the Republican base is on Obamacare. There's an enormous amount of base support for this move to defund it, even at a time where a lot of senior Republican lawmakers say you just can't do that. It's not possible, given the Republicans don't control the Senate and don't control the White House. But the fact is, I think a lot of Republican voters would like to see something happen on that. The kind of ironic thing about that is that Obamacare is already the law. It's very difficult to change it. Immigration reform, on the other hand, is not the law. It's just a bill that's been passed by the Senate, and it's something that Republicans control the future of, and it's going to be interesting to see how much they actually talk about that at home in August.
Now, when they come back, I mean, is it going to be either or, do you think? I mean, do they have to pick a priority, or couldn't they be, strong on both? I mean, to be honest with you, the leadership, like you said, has shown absolutely, and I'm talking about in the House, the Senate almost goes without saying, has shown no interest in defunding Obamacare, even though the head of the RNC came out yesterday and said, hey, if the government got shut down because we voted not to fund parts or all of Obamacare in a budget or a CR, it's not us who's going to shut down the government. It's going to be the president and the Republicans who won't accept that. So they're shutting down the government. I mean, and I kind of have to, the media won't present it that way, and the Democrats won't present it that way, but I'm glad I finally heard a Republican say that. But do they have a chance, the few Republicans who want to defund Obamacare, any hope at all of that, no matter what their constituents say, of that being the case when the House comes back?
I really don't think they do, and it's because of the Senate. The House certainly could pass a bill that would fund the rest of the government but would defund Obamacare. There's no doubt that House majority Republicans could do that. But in the Senate, clearly they couldn't pass a bill doing that, and I don't think they can stop a bill that does fund Obamacare because, first of all, there's only 46 Republicans in the Senate, and several of them, you'd need 41 to sustain a filibuster, and several Republicans, I listed 8 in a column I did a couple of days ago, have said they're not going to be any part of that effort to defund Obamacare. So there are not even enough Republicans on board to stop a filibuster in the Senate.
Which would result, if the House did do that and the Senate did do that, which would result in a stalemate and a shutdown of the government. But then who's to say who's to blame?
Well, I think, who's to say who's to blame? But I do think a lot of Republicans believe that in the press they would get the blame.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think you and I would probably agree with that as well. So they think it would be an uphill task to try to make the case that no, we didn't shut down the government. It was the president who's determined to fund Obamacare who shut down the government. I think a lot of Republicans see that as a fight they will not win.
All right. Now, what I hope doesn't happen is I hope it doesn't become, and I don't think you presented it as an either or, but I hope it doesn't become an either or in the minds of, again, the leadership in the House, which, if I had my druthers, they wouldn't be the leadership of the House, but nonetheless, they are. I hope so much focus isn't put on Obamacare that they feel a carte blanche, if you will, to move ahead with parts of, they're going to do it piecemeal, but even Chuck Schumer said, hey, that's okay by us. I hope that Boehner and the leadership doesn't, get weak-kneed on this immigration, saying, hey, everybody wanted to talk about Obamacare. I hardly heard anything about immigration. The Republicans really don't care about it. Our constituency isn't rallied up about it, so let's just pass it. And I hope that doesn't happen. Do you think there's a danger there?
I think there is a danger there. I think you've got it exactly right. I think there's a possibility that two things could happen. That one, a lot of the Republican base thinks immigration reform is just kind of dead already, so they're not making a big deal out of it at the August recess town halls. And then two, lawmakers come back from the August recess town halls and say, boy, we didn't hear much about immigration. I guess they're not really all that opposed to it. And then they go ahead with it. And you've heard Senator Schumer, you've heard Senator McCain say, just get us a bill to a conference committee, and then we'll get you something you really like. And that suggests that the framers of the Gang of Eight legislation believe that if there's some sort of conference committee between a House bill and their Gang of Eight Senate bill, that they can come up with something that looks a lot like this Gang of Eight bill.
Yeah, well, for people who really, like you said, who think that immigration reform is pretty much dead, I think they're in for a rude awakening. We're talking to Byron York, chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Okay, Ted Cruz, you wrote about this yesterday. Ted Cruz is the front runner in Iowa, apparently. Of course, the media has done everything they can to demonize this guy inside out, and it's only just begun, as they say. So does Ted Cruz have legs beyond Iowa?
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, the polls don't show him, leading the pack right now. As a matter of fact, there was a poll about a month ago that showed him in 6th place in Iowa. But there is absolutely no doubt that he is the hot candidate of the moment in Iowa. He just finished, there was a big meeting of social conservatives, evangelicals in Ames, Iowa, over the weekend. Rick Santorum spoke. Ted Cruz spoke. Santorum got a very good, enthusiastic, warm reception. Republicans there like him a lot. Ted Cruz just got a blowout, over-the-top, super enthusiastic reception. There's just no doubt that he is the one who is exciting them right now. Don't know where that's going to go. I mean, obviously we don't know if Ted Cruz is even running yet, but I do think it suggests that a lot of the Republican base is looking for a candidate who can position himself kind of like Cruz, who doesn't have a long record to defend, who just, he just got to the Senate 8 months ago. And
wait, that sounds familiar, like another story.
Well, exactly. And if you talk to the Cruz people, they say, look, Barack Obama got elected in 2004, comes to the Senate in January of 2005, immediately starts running for president, and didn't do anything in the Senate, which is the way, by the way, to get to the White House. You don't sort of compile this record that you have to defend.
Right.
Some people like and some people don't like. So, Cruz is really, really exciting a lot of Republicans at this very moment.
Okay, finally, you mentioned Rick Santorum. You wrote a piece. You and your colleague Philip Klein went back and forth on whether or not Rick Santorum should be considered a front runner for 2016. We're going to have Rick on in a few days again. And you seem to think that economically speaking, he hit the right note the last time around.
Yeah, he did. He first of all, Republicans do have kind of a habit of nominating the guy who finished second the last time around. Well, Rick Santorum finished second. Not only finished second, he won 11 primaries and caucuses the last time around. So you'd think that he would be in a pretty solid position for 2016, and yet nobody talks about him as a front runner or potential front runner for the race. One of the things I said, and I sat down and talked to him for about a week about an hour last week, is that he really has, I think, the most cogent analysis of why Republicans lost in 2012. And they lost because they didn't appeal to those millions of Americans who've seen their standard of living go down in the past decades, not just this economic downturn, but even before that. And Mitt Romney just did not appeal to those people, and they're the ones who stayed home. They didn't vote for Barack Obama. They're not Democrats. They're the ones who stayed home and didn't vote for anybody. And Santorum's message is Republicans have to start appealing to them.
Absolutely. One final question. Does he have to tone down socially?
Well, he has to be smarter about it because he certainly, I guess, stuck his foot in his mouth a number of times, usually over social issues in the campaign, in which he didn't really have to do that. I mean, he easily could have handled loaded questions about social issues in a better way and not made it the centerpiece. He knows that he is viewed as a social issues candidate, and yet if you, specifically a pro-life candidate, and yet if you followed him around the campaign trail, as I did in Iowa, he talked a lot more about the economy. He talked more about national security than he talked about social issues. So he knows he's got to be careful on that, and we'll see if he actually does better.
It was a pleasure, sir. As always, Byron York, chief political correspondent, The Washington Examiner. We'll watch you on Fox News Channel as well. Thank you for your time, as always, Byron.
Thank you, Steve.
Take care. Byron York.